Billie Eilish fan says, 2 years ago you had a reading list on your website that you provided your followers. Yet now, here we go. Yet now you claim that books serve little more purpose than to increase one's vocabulary. What caused you to make such a drastic change on this topic? I just think that people are stupid, and books are not going to change that. Books, overrated, and I stand by that. I continue to believe that most of the population shouldn't even be literate. We must return to tradition, and you, as the slobbering masses, have to understand that that may entail that you won't be able to read, and you're going to have to be okay with that. And in some ways, I think that's actually even better. A return to a simpler time. So yeah, I stand by that. No books! No books! You want to read a book? Read Patriots and Penance by Bill O'Reilly. You want to read a book? Read the Bible, okay? If you want to read a book, find your own books out of your own curiosity. But I continue to crusade against the written word. I continue to crusade against books. And, generally I am joking when I say I'm against books. It really comes down to a failure of people to even understand what I mean, which actually proves what I mean when I say that. Which is to say that when I say I'm against books, I don't actually mean you shouldn't read. People should read. People should read books. You should educate yourself about the issues. And I'm setting you up to read my book. When I publish a book, you should definitely read my book. But what I started to say on the show some time ago is that, people think that if you read enough books, you're really going to increase your IQ. And I think really what it comes down to is people think that books are magical. And they think that if you're just reading lots and lots and lots and lots of books, that this is going to improve your life by leaps and bounds and really change your universe. And I just think that books are overrated. That's all. I just think that as a form of information or content delivery, I think that books are good for a few things. I think that books are good for your attention span. I think they're good for your brain in the sense that, when you're on Twitter all day, I think it really destroys your brain. Because what your phone basically is it's like a slot machine. You click on Twitter and you reload it and you get a hit, right? Or you refresh your notifications and you get a hit. You open up your app and you get new content. And that's really how all of these apps are designed to work. That's how Instagram, Twitter, that's how the entire internet is made to work. It's meant to use these just basic psychological tricks to trap you. And I think that just basically destroys your brain. So I think that, and honestly, that's really more a case for mitigating the use of mobile phones and mitigating the use of the internet more than it is for books. But I think that books are maybe good for recovering from that. I think it's good for discipline and for your attention span. I think books are good for your vocabulary. I think books are good for expanding your general knowledge and maybe your general horizons. But I just think that casual reading, short of being an academic, I think as far as your IQ goes, as far as how much information you can recall, I honestly think that it has its limitations, especially as you get older. I think especially once you reach a certain age, I think that it's vastly overrated, this idea that you're going to read all these books and then you're going to become Ben Shapiro. You're going to read enough books and then you're going to have this perfect recall and become an historian. I just think that some people talk about books like that's the end-all, be-all, and I just don't think that's the case. I think that you have to balance out reading books with, I think, contemplation. I think more than anything, I think people are trying to outsource their critical thinking to books, when I think people should just think about the world. I think people would be a lot better off, and it's not to say that one is necessarily better than the other. I think maybe you need both. But I think people would be wise to actually sit down and be pensive and engage in critical thinking without consuming information. It's really more cynicism about this idea that it's about self-improvement and consumption. To me, my criticism of books comes from this angle that, it's this idea that our every waking moment is dedicated to self-improvement, and self-improvement consists in these few very simple activities, universal activities like working out and reading. And, if you're reading, if you're just consuming information, then I think that what is sorely lacking these days is people sitting in silence and challenging themselves to just think about their own world, as opposed to like, tell me a book I should read. And what are you doing when you're reading? You're reading what someone else is saying. It's still consuming information, which there's nothing inherently wrong with consuming information, but I think an over-reliance on sort of outsourcing critical thinking to other people, I think that is just limiting. If I could explain it in a way that is comprehensive, because people are not going to let me go on this one. Every day it's book list. Why are you against? People are like mad at me because I'm like, as if I'm like preventing people from reading. I just think that people should think more, because I'll often find myself when I have a problem, for example, or I'm thinking about a political subject. It's very easy for me to go on Amazon and buy a book about it. It's very easy for me to Google, how to X, what to do if X. But I often find myself, when I have my best thoughts, or when I find the best problems to solutions, or when I really think of something insightful, it's when I stop and say, well, wait a minute. Maybe I'll just try to figure it out. I'm smart. Maybe I'll just try to figure it out, as opposed to automatically and instantly just looking for a book on Amazon that I can order and say, okay, now this book is on the way, or Googling something and finding an article. Sometimes I'll sit down and think, well, wait a minute, let me take a stab at it. If I'm thinking about the world or philosophy, and by philosophy I don't mean anything pretentious. I just mean thinking about like the way things are, or thinking about your life. I think that that's totally missing. I think that the book reading thing has been part of this onslaught of frenzied activity that we are prescribed. If you have a problem in your life, if you have a deficiency in your life, you just need to fill up your schedule. And that means, wake up at 4 a.m. and take a cold shower, and then go for a jog, and then take a hot shower, and then read your book, and then drink your, green protein shake, and then you're going to go to work, and then you're going to work really, really hard at your job, and then you're going to meditate. And then you're going to, you know what I mean? So it's really in the context of that I tell people, don't worry so much about the books. Worry more, I think, about contemplation. I think that's really where I'm coming at it from. So, are you happy now? Are you happy now that I gave you a serious answer? For the past year, maybe 6 months or something, people really, I offended all these book people, and that's true. It's like a lot of these book people are so one-dimensional because all they know how to do is read words. All they know how to do is recollect things that they've read. And they've totally outsourced that, their brain into the written word. And don't get me wrong, it's not to say that there's anything wrong with reading. It's good to call on authors and other people have had really great insights, and learning them, I think, is it's insightful for your own contemplation. But to completely get rid of your own thought, to completely rely on books and on the consumption of information and on this task completion, frenzied mentality of accumulating knowledge and things like that, I think it's kind of missing the bigger picture. So I don't know if I'm doing a good job of articulating that, but people are not going to let me go on this. Every day it's a super chat about book list this, book list that. You tell people not to read books. I feel like I'm in grade school. And I'm getting lectured by a librarian. Anyway, so that's my take on that.